Welcome to episode 4 of Bagels Eat Locks. You got your boy here, Harambe Covers, and my man, Dan, the parlay lawyer.
Happy to be here.
Yes, it is a happy day. We had crazy March Madness. My head is still kind of spinning after nonstop basketball for about 4 days straight.
Yeah, it was great, though.
Loved it.
It was a blur, but it was, one of the best times of the year if you're a sports bettor and sports fan, that's for sure.
Or a horrible time if you don't follow and subscribe to us. So be sure you follow and subscribe to us. We did give some hot takes. We will go over it. But like anything else in life, we are not perfect. Dan, give me a little bit of your weekend recap, and I'll go through mine.
Wow. So it was like the tale of 2 days, right? Day Saturday, decided to follow the favorites, and man, did that work out. I mean, every single favorite on Saturday won. And then Sunday, I tried to switch it up, and I said, you know what? I think all the underdogs are going to cover. And it started out okay in the first game, and then, man, it was brutal. It was a bloodbath. It was all chalk.
No, yeah, for sure. And I was looking online a little bit, and Vegas was putting out quotes, they got creamed on Saturday.
You love to see that.
No, the people yeah. Spoke. Parlays were hitting left and right. People, the favorites just nonstop winning. A Sunday was a little bit back and forth, very interesting. But prior to that, we had Thursday and Friday action. We were at the Hard Rock on Friday. It was a glorious day. It was wonderful seeing some people there. What were some of your takeaways from the first round?
Wow. So Stetson, not the play, clearly. I didn't play them. I actually played UConn, but I was hoping for some Cinderella. We got one Cinderella team on one of those 2 days, and that was Oakland.
The Golden Grizzlies.
Golden Grizzlies, Oakland, Michigan. For all of you listening, I blew my mind when I heard that. I was sending people memes of NWA and things like that.
Everything California.
Only to find out that it was in Michigan. They had this legendary player. Now he'll be remembered forever for hitting all those threes. He actually did hit a lot of threes in the second game, but that Cinderella story, as so many do, came to a quick ending and didn't make it to the Sweet 16.
I was ready to buy my Oakland Golden Grizzlies hat to wear today when they were winning at the very end. It was literally in my cart on Amazon, and I almost bought it. And then I was like, I'm just going to wait. And the good thing, I really don't need that hat at all.
And apparently in Louisville, there was a huge uptick of Oakland purchases of that school's stuff. So you're going to see a lot of people walking around Louisville because they're rivals with the team that Oakland beat.
Kentucky,
Right, with Kentucky. So apparently it was a popular purchase. I don't know what they're going to do with those jerseys now, if we'll ever see Oakland again, but it was fun while it lasted, that's for sure.
It was, and I definitely can see some troll jobs next season with the fat heads of Golke heads in Louisville. I can see them waving them when they play Kentucky.
It's just staying on Kentucky. What do you think's going to happen with their coach?
I think he's canned.
Yeah. He has to be, right?
It's one of those programs, they just don't tolerate that.
Mm-hmm. And everything's changed now. It used to be everyone's gonna go one and done who's good, so you can load up on those style players. Mm-hmm. The NIL has really changed the game. These players can make more money potentially in college than they're going to make in the NBA. You have players who maybe they're going to be a second round pick, but they're superstars at their college. They're getting huge NIL deals. This might be the moment they're going to make the most money in their career. So they're sticking around, and now you can actually build a program around players that are going to be there for years. I look at all the top players in this tournament. They're mostly seniors. The best player in the nation, to most people, Eddie, he's a senior. So I think the Calipari way of going about things, where that was the way to do it earlier in this decade, NIL has changed the game. You're going to go back to building strong foundational programs that are going to be there year after year. And that's also probably why we're seeing a lot of this chalk and a lot of the Cinderella teams in previous years that may have pushed the envelope and got there to the Sweet 16 because they had these guys who've been playing together for 4 years against these very talented athletic freshmen that were never in big games. You're not seeing that as much now. So I think possibly that is the catalyst for a lot of these favorites winning.
That's a very hot take, and I like that a lot. Didn't really think of it in that nature. Definitely can see that. And these NIL deals, you know, we had a talk with some of our friends at the Hard Rock and even family and people. I say the NBA is very difficult to make. It's probably the hardest league to make. The longevity of the guys' careers in the NBA is a lot longer than some, like the NFL, for example, right? And these rosters are 15 dudes on a bench, and find your seat in line. You know, you got these guys in the NBA that are playing 8, 9, 10 years, and it's not like the NFL where, let's say you're a receiver and, you know, you have all the attributes and you have all the talents, and they say, you know what, gain 30 pounds, we're going to put you at tight end or play special teams, which we're going to get to a little bit later about some of those changes. But, you know, there's a room where they can fit. But if you're a point guard and you're 6 foot, well, you're not going to be able to play center, right? Stay in your lane. So there is only so many spots. The NIL deals definitely do give these guys, you know, reason to stay and make money before they go play in Europe or something of that nature. One game I do want to mention, I was really high on Samford, the Samford-Kansas game. I started on my bracket here, and the only reason why I did is because I'm just so heartbroken for Samford. The way that game ended was a catastrophe. That was the cleanest block I have ever seen. Samford put themselves in a hole. They were down like 21 or 22, come all the way back. Should have had the ball, down 1 with 14 seconds. Very clean block. The guy, you know, just kind of grabbed the rim and twisted and came down hard. So the ref called a foul. But do you agree under 2 minutes? Like when the NFL was doing pass interference, right? It needs to be so definitive, so clear that it was a clean block. Shouldn't they be able to review that?
Well, I had Kansas winning that game, so I was very happy. I'll be honest, that was one of the late ones. I fell asleep. I saw the highlights. Should they be able to review these games go on so long. They have other games usually back to back. Mm-hmm. For TV purposes, for our viewing purposes, where do we draw the line, David? You know, where do we draw the line? And I think we need to draw the line with things like that. It's part of the game. It sucks. If you're on the Samford side, you're pissed off. But, you know, it's part of the game. And again, like you said, they put themselves in this big hole. They needed everything to go right. One of the things that might not go right is getting those calls. And that's what happened in that situation.
I understand. And I agree with that statement. A couple other shockers we had was JMU. We called it. We said JMU. JMU did take care of business, but then got walloped by Duke. But, you know, a lot of these big programs that we were kind of on are just taking care of business.
Dominating, like Purdue. Purdue was one of them that after the conference championships, people were very down on, and they have just looked absolutely dominant. That was a team that I bet against. Did not work out there in that game against Utah. And was it Utah State? Yeah. And they just looked dominant. They looked like they couldn't be stopped. They also were getting a lot of calls, if you want to talk about calls. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they took care of business, and now we have a very good matchup in the Sweet 16 between Purdue and Gonzaga, two teams that people expected to be there. The lines, I don't know if you looked at the lines for Sweet 16, but the lines that have come out, they're very close games. Everyone's anticipating close games. In the Sweet 16, looking at the bracket, I don't see one team in here that isn't maybe besides Creighton, that isn't kind of perennially there and was expected to be there. So I think we're going to have some really exciting matchups. The big upset idea is kind of gone out the window because, look, even if you have a team like UNC that has looked great, I could see going forward. If they lost, it wouldn't shock the world.
No, and I wasn't high on UNC, right? Yeah. There's a lot of these schools like Illinois. They weren't playing I said it, and I'll stand by it. In the conference tournament, they were not playing a full 40 minutes. They got their shit together, and they're dominant. I don't see anyone stopping UConn. That's just a force to be reckoned. But the UNCs, the Bamas, Clemson, Tennessee, who kind of people were sleeping on. And then now that we're here in the Sweet 16, it's like, oh, no shit. This is chalk. This is what it should be. North Carolina State's a shocker. But we're going to get into you want to dive into Sweet 16
let's
predictions? Well, if we're talking Sweet 16, there's just something I got to do. So you start and I'm going to.
Okay. I don't know where you're going with this, but looking at the Sweet 16, just from the top, we have you. Oh, look at this. Look what we have going on here.
Well, it's Sweet 16, so I got to celebrate.
Why do you even have this?
Don't ask questions. Don't ask questions.
Wow.
This is if we're going to do Sweet 16, I just feel like I got to get in the spirit of Sweet 16, channel my inner Sweet 16.
Listen,
I never had one. So
after I watched the Nickelodeon documentary, I don't know if this is so appropriate here.
Well, you know what? Fuck it. That's what I say. All right.
All right. So you're going to leave this on while we
Sweet 16.
Just Sweet 16.
I mean, this.
All right. Hey, do you?
Thank you.
Let your flag fly.
It's 2024.
Okay. So we're talking about UConn and San Diego State first. Like you said, UConn has just been rolling over teams. They don't look like they have a lot of holes, even in that last game where there was, at the end, the spread got into danger, I guess, but the spread was at 20 something.
Right.
So, UConn, I expect them to just roll over San Diego State, who has not yet really been challenged by a top tier school. Yale looked great in their game against Auburn, but they shot ridiculous from three, similar to Oakland, where look, if you're going to, just have a hot night and shoot close to 50% from three, and you're shooting a lot of them, in college basketball, it's going to be really hard to lose.
It's true.
And we saw in the next game when they didn't shoot as well, totally different story.
Right.
And a lot of people thought maybe Yale could win that next game. They weren't a test for San Diego State. And I think UConn rolls over them, and we're going to see them in the Elite Eight.
I agree. Let's move on. I have nothing more to say. You hit it on the head.
Okay, so the next game we have Illinois and Iowa State. Illinois has been looking really good as well. All schools that you never would have even heard of it existing had it not been for the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely.
That's what I kind of like about the NCAA tournament. I'm learning a lot about smaller schools in Division I and where they are, what's going on. You see a little tidbit about, how the school was founded, great educational experience, but they also had an educational experience against Illinois.
Absolutely.
Who beat the crap out of them. Now they're taking on Iowa State, who's a pretty good team.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, I'm going to just ride this till I die. Illinois fell into the trap of not playing a full 40 minutes in the conference tournament. Iowa State's a very good team. I'm going to take Iowa State here. I think it's eventually going to catch up to Illinois.
Wow.
I like UConn and Iowa State. It's the 1 and the 2. It's very boring. It's very chalk.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, I mean, that's what I think. I'm going to jump down here. North Carolina and Bama. Bama looked phenomenal. But Grand Canyon, and kudos Grand Canyon, I had them in a parlay with JMU, throwing that out there to win the first game. Grand Canyon kept in that game against Bama. Bama eventually closed the door on them, finished it, but they struggled with Grand Canyon's length. North Carolina's length is more. And these players that go to UNC that get, selected with a scholarship are better caliber athletes than Grand Canyon. Let's just call a spade a spade. They're going to struggle against UNC's length, size, and strength. Give me UNC here. I think UNC is going to start that run, and that's my take on the UNC Bama.
Okay, so I see that too. I see North Carolina winning. But an interesting betting statistic that I was reading today, apparently, so the line's at about 4.5 as of this second, I believe. It could move, but over 90% of the public bets are on North Carolina to cover in this game. Again, this is why the sportsbooks make money.
Not Saturday.
Right. Not Saturday, but they're back with a vengeance. Yeah. Okay. The Empire always strikes back. And I believe that that is a very troubling statistic to me. I'm not saying that North Carolina is not going to win, but even at 4.5 points, it's making me think, is this going to be a close game that North Carolina wins by 2 or 3? And the smart money is to bet against the public and to go and bet plus 4.5, maybe even move that line a little bit with Bama. So I'm thinking about this one. I'm struggling. I'm thinking, do I just, as part of a parlay, put North Carolina money line? Because I do think they're going to win.
I think UNC by 10 plus.
But man, 4 points, right?
I'll take them by 10.
Okay. All right. So you're going to take them by 10. I want the viewers to be aware that the public is just...
It's channeling. I feel it.
The public is just crushing on this North Carolina bet. The line will move potentially because of it. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to bet North Carolina, probably do it like now, because that's what the stats are showing. So the next game we got Clemson versus Arizona. You really liked Arizona.
I have Arizona to win it all.
You have Arizona to win it all. You like them to keep going. I like them against Clemson as well. I think that they got very lucky against Baylor. That's a game that they easily could have lost. I like Arizona also to continue. I think this side of the bracket is going to be very chalky again. And it's an interesting difference from how it usually works. But March Madness always surprises everyone. And now we have teams that are proven winners. They've won 2 games. Mm-hmm. They show that they can win. And you can't discount even a team like Clemson, who you think is going to get destroyed in this game, or a team like Bama in the previous game, because look, they've shown they can win games and anything can happen in those 2 halves of basketball. So we'll see what happens there, but I do agree with you. Let's move over to the other side of the bracket. Probably a little bit more interesting in terms of like what could happen. Houston versus Duke, I think, is a fantastic matchup because Houston has, taken care of business, so to speak, but they still, to me, look very beatable. Whereas Duke, who I was not high on at all in this NCAA tournament, they looked incredible in the last game.
Well, so, if you recall, last time we spoke about March Madness, you said Krzyzewski ain't walking through that door. Yeah. But maybe the ghost of Krzyzewski walked through that door.
Maybe he was there. Actually, so I was wrong, ladies and gentlemen, because he did walk through that door, not to coach, but he was watching.
He was. This matchup is immaculate. This whole Sweet 16 is phenomenal. It's like my Super Sweet 16 on MTV. It's just going to be... The show is going to be massive. The lights are going to be shining. All the programs are phenomenal. I'm leaning Duke just based upon, I'm just not a Houston.
It's a feeling.
It's just, I don't know. But part of me feels like this is going to be like a passing of the torch. Like Duke passing it to Houston, and Houston's going to just be one of these programs that continue to perform and continue to be a dominant factor in college basketball. Jumping down, we got NC State and Marquette. Wow, NC State. I mean, they're probably the most Cinderella that I see here. Creighton, I know you mentioned, but they're a 3 seed. Let's call it what it is. NC State is an 11. They're in with all the big boys, but they are playing phenomenal.
Yeah, and basketball. they have a lot of like X factors going on their team.
They do.
They have this huge guy. Mm-hmm. His name's escaping me.
It escaped me as well, but he's huge. He's scary.
He's huge. He's scary. He reminds me of Escalade from
and one.
Yeah, I think they could be related, but very similar play style. The thing with NC State, they have that inside-outside game. It's really about whether or not, and they also have that guy Middlebrooks too, right? Isn't that on that team?
I believe so.
Yeah, their backup center looked very good as well. It's really about him staying out of foul trouble. If you watch those games, I guess he gets credit for his style of play. They know he's going to be a banger, but man, it looks like an offensive foul almost every time he touches the ball.
Yeah. Do you think them playing Oakland, like Oakland, yes, Golden Grizzlies, congratulations. But do you think they knocked off, a big boy, Kentucky, but was Oakland really them? Or was that one of those like shocking 1 games and then NC State kind of had a gimme? Because Oakland did keep it tight with NC State for a little bit of time. Yeah. Till like the last minute or two.
Yeah, I mean, I think NC State is an exciting team that you want to root for. They look like they have really good chemistry. The players, they come out to, almost like they're UFC fighters coming out to the ring, and they're exciting, and you want to root for them. But they do look beatable in every game that they've played. I think it's one of these things where eventually, and this could be with Marquette, that they're running into a real polished team that has answers for them. I'll be rooting for NC State.
As will I.
Excuse me. I'll be seeing looking closely at the line. If I see a place I can get in, I might take them to cover, but I think that this is probably the end of the road for them.
And I hope not, because I'm gonna lean NC State here. Marquette, they played a Colorado team that, I think they had like 9 points in the first half, like with 10 minutes left. Very low scoring. Then they kind of started blowing Colorado out. They let Colorado crawl back in the game. Colorado almost finished it. It's very similar style with like NC State Oakland. Like they let the team kind of come back. Give me NC State here. I like what they're the story that they wouldn't even been in the tournament had they not done what they did in conference play. So give me NC State here. And moving on to Purdue and Gonzaga, 2 big boy programs. You know where I'm leaning on this. I'm just a Purdue truther here on this, but what's your take?
Yeah, Gonzaga's looked really good, and they've had tough matchups. Even with McNeese, a lot of people picked McNeese as the Cinderella team. You were one of them who really liked them. It was one of the more popular bets for a money line bet in that first round and to cover the spread. The Zags took care of business. I think it's going to be a great game. I think Purdue, what we have to see now with Purdue is this the Purdue that we're going to get until the rest of the season? Or are they going to fall backwards into who they were in the conference championship? So I think the door's open for the Zags to win. But man, the way that if Purdue plays the way that they've played so far in this tournament, they are going to be there in the national championship against UConn, in my opinion. I know you like Arizona.
And only because Arizona's playing in Arizona, the Final Four and national championship. And that was my turn. Like, UConn is just, I mean, I know we got friends that are big UConn fans and they're probably going to hate me, but just playing in Arizona, the comfort, UConn traveling all the way cross country. Because they do go back to school. They do go back. They do have classes. They do stuff.
Do they really have classes during the tournament when you go to UConn and you play basketball?
Actually, I was just prior to doing this today, I was just scrolling on TikTok, and there was a girl that was at Duke, and she's in it's a joke of a class, but a TikTok class.
And
good skill. Yeah. And she said a lot of the ball players are there, and about 3 of the starting 5 were in class.
Showed up to class.
Yeah.
Good for them. Well, that's good. Get your education, stay in school, get that NIL money.
There you go.
Get a career after if this whole basketball thing doesn't work out. But we'll see. I even in those national championship games, I think putting all this credit on where it's at, these schools travel.
They do.
And we even know our friends that are the big UConn fans.
They already have flights.
They already have flights. They're booking their ticket. And if they're there in the national championship, perhaps we'll zoom them into our next discussion.
Zoom? Why don't we just go?
Well, if we get a sponsor that's paying for it, then
we're looking for flights.
Yeah,
at Delta, United,
American. Hey, even Frontier.
Spirit.
I don't know about Spirit.
All right, fine.
But Frontier, you have our number. The last game, Creighton versus Tennessee. Sorry, I was looking at the bracket. I saw Texas. I'm like, they didn't win.
No.
Tennessee, Creighton. We all want Creighton to win. Everyone wants the small guy, the little guy to win. Do you think that they can?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really, like I said, Tennessee is shocking me, right? They were kind of like a 2 seed that no one was talking about, kind of like in Arizona. I think Creighton gets it done. Because Oregon was on a great run, was a great program, and Creighton just handled business. Handled business. And I just see Creighton taking care of Tennessee. So we'll have Purdue-Creighton matchup, which would be quite glorious. We got through all of the Sweet 16. So kind of just scanning at it, give me your Final Four prediction based upon what you see right here while I take this off, because this is giving me a massive headache.
Final Four, honestly, I see it pretty chalk. Probably where we differ, I think UConn, Arizona, so we'll probably be the same there. I still like Houston over Duke, so I could actually see Houston beating Marquette. I know you see it a completely different path going there and looking at two different choices. And then I see Purdue, and I actually think Tennessee.
Hey, and that's fine. So you think?
Oh, so then I think Purdue comes out of there.
Purdue comes out of that. Okay.
Yep. So I think we're gonna have that is as chalk as it could be, right? Houston, Purdue.
It is really chalk.
And UConn. That's all the ones, right?
And I'm gonna go UConn. No, Zona's a 2. Give me Zona. I'm gonna go NC State in the Final Four. I think they take care of business against Marquette.
Whoa.
I think Houston and Duke just beat the shit out of one another, and they're going to be very tired. Because remember, the turnaround is just 2 days later.
Yeah.
And Purdue. So NC State, Purdue, UConn, Arizona, my Final Four.
Okay. So let's see when we discuss again.
Yeah.
We'll have an idea of who it is.
Now, we were talking about fouls and reviewing. Let's get to NFL. A lot has been going on with the NFL with rule changes. Dan, there's 3 key ones.
Mm-hmm.
You can start with one and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the one that everyone's talking about, and that's this hip drop tackle ban. Okay, when this was first announced, I was saying to myself, "Wait a second, let me see what this even looks like." And what I can gather, I don't know how you could possibly tackle anybody from the side anymore, how you could really chase anyone down. What they're saying is that you cannot leave your weight, right? So if you grab onto them, you can't go ahead and sort of drop your feet and let your weight take the player down. How do you even tackle?
So
these players are running at 20 miles per hour. How do you even stop them? To me, this is like, we might as well play flag football. We might as well play two-hand touch football. What are we doing here?
It's a killer. I think that they're leaving too much to the refs, again, to use their judgment call. I saw a hot take. Someone mentioned that they might be coaching tight ends and receivers to, when they get tackled, to fall back.
Yeah.
To kind of like, almost like an NBA flop, right? Like to fall back. Now, I did take a screenshot of the rule, and I'll just read it to our viewers here. It's Article 18, the hip drop tackle. It is a foul if a player uses the following technique to bring a runner to the ground. A, grabs the runner with both hands or wraps the runner with both arms and unweighs himself by swiveling and dropping his hips or lower body, landing on the trapping runner's legs below the knee. So basically, you've seen dudes on like the rodeos when they're grabbing the cattle and they kind of do like a twist. Again, I just don't see how they can tackle them. If I'm coming, let's say you're coming to tackle me, and I'm running and I'm not very fast. You're much faster than I, but you catch up to me, you will need coming from behind. Now, yes, we have a size difference, but remember, a tight end and a receiver are bigger than some of these corners. So it's a great, perspective. How are you going to tackle me without using your body weight and, your leverage, leaving your feet? Like, what are you going to RKO, wrestle move me down? I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't. So for instance, famous tackle in recent years that really put his athleticism into the forefront, DK Metcalf. Do you remember that chase down tackle where he ran all the way down the field?
There's memes of it.
That would have been a penalty with this new rule.
Right.
But how is he supposed to tackle him? So what are we saying to the players now? Just leave them alone because they're in front of you? It's absolutely absurd.
They have to lunge basically forward.
This is a rule that I predict will not last more than this season. It's going to cause a huge problem. It's going to change games. This is not good. We don't want to have rules put in that change football completely. Do you want to protect the player's head and neck area? That makes sense, okay? There are ways to form tackle by going at the body. There are ways, this was one of the ways, to go at their legs and bring them to the ground. And now we're saying you can't tackle them on their head. You can't tackle them below. How are we tackling anymore?
Just hug.
Let's just two-hand touch. No, seriously. Let's play flag football. Let's play two-hand touch. There'll be less calls. This is going to be an absolute disaster. And it's interesting because the NFL then says the next rule change, which I think the complete opposite of. I think it was a great idea, and that's the kickoffs.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, so
the kickoff, thank you, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. If you smell what he is cooking, he literally brought it to the XFL, and the NFL said, fuck yeah, we're taking it, which is great. I think that's what the XFL and the UFL now with their merger should be about, testing these rules. Maybe do this hip rule there, right, first, and see how it goes. But
well, they would completely, the little viewership they have, they would have.
This is true. But the kickoff rule. So basically they are going to be lined up, I believe, 10 yards apart and at like the 30-yard line.
Yeah.
Now, the kicker can kick it into the end zone, and then the ball will be brought out to the 30, or he has to land it in the landing zone. If he lands the ball in the landing zone, once the player catches the ball, they can go and start like their skirmish, right? If it goes before the landing zone, the ball will then be placed at the 40, kind of like where it gets kicked out of bounds and there's a flag thrown. What I find very interesting with this, and even that hip rule, what I foresee next year in the NFL, take the overs. The overs. There's going to be way more opportunity, more flags thrown. It's going to be harder to tackle guys. The overs are going to go up. Now, will Vegas adjust their lines accordingly is going to be to be seen. But the kickoff, players like a Tyreek Hill, what's stopping the Dolphins from putting Tyreek there? Because it's not as high of an impact play. He gets past one layer, the motherfucker's gone.
Yeah.
No one's catching him.
So it'll be interesting also how they account for that. We just look at it right away by saying, okay, they catch it in the landing zone, they're all going to start running at each other. But maybe you don't do that. Maybe it's going to be a layered, tiered approach where you drop two guys back to play sort of like a safety role. Mm-hmm. Because I do agree with you. I think that if you take out why this is good for the game, previously when we were growing up and we're watching football, you had just elite athletes like a Devin Hester. Mm-hmm. You'd have guys like your Eagles. I remember Brian Westbrook even returned kicks. Tiki Barber
Deshaun Jackson
for a while. Deshaun Jackson. Because of the high impact situation and the risk for injury, those guys now, you're either a special teams player or you're playing on offense or defense. And now you're saying, hey, let's get our best playmaker out there. It's going to be really exciting now when there are kickoffs. I do think we'll see a lot more touchdowns coming from this rule, which is good. Touchdowns are good, but there's still that fun defensive part of the game. Now, again, you combine this with the other rule, and these guys, they start getting past the first layer, and now what do? You can't tackle them really from behind or the side.
And you alluded to dropping guys back, but I have to check because I don't even know if they can, because then it defeats the purpose of them. Now you have a player from a distance running in fast, just like a normal kickoff. So maybe if they drop them back, then they can't run foot. Like, I don't know what I'm saying.
We'd have to look at the rule. We're going to have to see how it plays out. But, there's always innovations,
of course,
in the game.
It's going to make a lot of fantasy impact.
For sure. Special teams touchdowns, just touchdown score, even in betting. If you have a player prop that's going to score one touchdown, we'll see, if that now raises that bar where Tyreek Hill's line is, instead of one touchdown, it's 1.5, right? Because of it. So, yeah, I actually like the rule. I'm excited to see what happens with it. Again, with these rules, we have seen them put in rules for a year, take them away. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that hip drop tackle rule goes away, or they may even, it's getting so much backlash, it might not even see the light of day. It might go through preseason and then they just take it out.
It's true.
We'll see. The other final rule that they implemented, which is just logical and makes a lot of sense. If you win a challenge, you don't have to win two to get one back. You get it back right away. The refs, they made a mistake. You caught it. Why should you be penalized and now only have one challenge that if you lose that challenge, you don't get another one? I like this rule. The refs make so many mistakes. And I think what's really highlighted that more for all of us, TV has gotten so inside the game. You feel like you're in the huddle. You know, even with the Apple Pro, apparently I haven't tried it out, but like you can almost be on the field. We see the calls now. We see that it's the wrong call. We see that this should have been, you know, they stepped out of bounds, or they didn't step out of bounds, or they caught the ball, or they didn't catch the ball. We see it all. So if we're having that experience of knowing what the right call is, why should there not be more opportunity for everybody to get it right?
Agree. And thank you, Detroit Lions and Man Campbell and everybody there, because it is the Detroit Lions rule. They're the ones that put it up. It got approved. It's just common sense. Just common sense. But we do talk bets. We do talk gambling. And there's been a flurry of news in players probably doing some things that they should not be doing.
Or that they should be allowed to. First, depending on who it is.
This is true. First, let's go with Jontay Porter. Now, sir, I barely even know who you are. I knew you because you are Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. That said, you have to be a complete moron to have the highest bet prop of the night, you're under, and magically you have fucking diarrhea? Like, no. Sir, or your eye is hurt and your tummy hurts? No. It's absolutely ridiculous. He had his friends bet on it. I believe he bet on it. You just blew your career.
Well, a couple of things about Jontay Porter. So first of all, anyone betting consistent Jontay Porter props, you got to ask questions about. A lot of people didn't even know who Jontay Porter was before this. Jontay Porter makes about $400,000 a year with his salary, which for most of America is a great living. But for an NBA player, it is as low as you can go.
Right.
He's been famous for talking about how he crypto invests, quote unquote. I would call that betting as well. His lines are always so low. The fact that the under was hitting consistently in such odd fashions, like he took himself out of the game because he had an eye injury. There was one highlight I saw where the under was on him shooting, making a certain amount of threes. He chucks up a three, banks it. The look of fear on his face. In the same week that we're hearing this story, we had JB Bickerstaff, a coach in the NBA, talk about how his family's been threatened by sports bettors. I don't know the details of that. I don't know how true it is. We talked about this, I think, on our first podcast, that there's always this, dark side of betting that seeps into the games. You don't expect it from a professional, especially betting against themselves. The famous story is, of course, Pete Rose, hit king, most hits of all time. He's not in the Hall of Fame because he was caught betting on his games to win, right?
Right, which is better. I mean, double-edged sword, but I'd rather take the win.
No, well, at least he's still trying to win.
Right. Jontay Porter is like, my belly hurts.
And you have a guy that is a very minor player for his team, focused selfishly on himself. Now, again, these are allegations. We'll see if it's true, but there's a lot of smoke to this fire.
I mean, again, like you said, you barely know who he is. I barely know who he is. The fact that, I believe it was DraftKings, they said that it was the highest bet prop. And it was serious, like 20 grand, 30 grand.
Yeah. No, there was an $80,000 bet on an under one night that hit over $1 million.
But that's what I'm saying. Who's betting 80 grand on Jontay Porter?
It agreed. Maybe Jontay Porter, right? But yeah, no, that was a crazy story. And on the same week that we hear a massive story, because this generation's Babe Ruth, right? He is the best player in Major League Baseball. He has the biggest salary. He plays both ways. He's a great pitcher. He's a great hitter. Ohtani apparently paying a bookie something like $4 million. Now he's blaming it on his translator. Okay.
But there's smoke that they said that it was him. Like they know that he was betting it or something.
Well, look at this situation. His excuse, he came out yesterday, was that the translator had stole money from him to make these payoffs, had access. Why did he have access to his account, right, as a translator?
Right.
It doesn't make really a lot of sense. This guy was with him all the time. You're telling me that $4 million leaves your account to go pay a bookie and you have no idea about it? You have no idea that your translator's a degenerate gambler? The real problem with this story is that it logically does the thing that we all have to think about here is that if Ohtani's out for the year, which is what the rule would be, that he would be suspended for the season, that is a major problem for Major League Baseball.
They don't need this.
They are already having the lowest viewership of all time. Young people don't have patience for the game. I love baseball, but I'll be honest with you. When I was younger, I watched almost every Yankee game. Big Yankee fan. Now, you can't get me to watch a full game until the playoffs, right? And I love baseball. I played baseball. I love the game. But everyone's ADD does not allow us to sit there through 9 innings. They've done a lot to try to speed up the game. They were lucky to get this guy Ohtani, who's this generational star that maybe could lead them into this, through this difficult time for baseball. And now, what do? Their rules say that he likely has to be suspended for the year. They haven't come out with it yet. They said they're still investigating. I think Major League Baseball is going to do everything possible to make sure they don't have to and believe his story. Do you believe his story?
No, but I agree with you tenfold. Baseball cannot afford this whatsoever. Baseball is going to do everything they can to make this kind of go out. Maybe his translator read the jersey of one of his colleagues on his team, Mookie Betts, and goes, "Oh, Betts, we have to bet." I don't know. I'm just making a joke there. But in all reality, like, numbers don't need translation. A number is a number, no matter what language. You see $4 million leave your account. Hello. I don't care what you're getting paid. So, yes, baseball cannot afford it. In my opinion, I think baseball needs to cut the season in like half. I think baseball was great. The one during COVID, it was like a shorter season. It was more exciting. The games meant more. If you're a passionate Yankee fan or a Philly fan or whatever the case may be, and they lose in the middle of May on a Wednesday afternoon when you're at work, you're not going to be pissed. If the Giants or the Eagles, for myself, lose on a Sunday, I'm going to be pissed because every game matters so much. You pay more attention. You're cued in. Like you said, I don't watch baseball until I'll start looking at standings mid-August, right? And then you see the chase to October in September. You see that little run where it's like tight. And honestly, in baseball, it's the same freaking 5 teams that are in it every playoff anyway. So baseball can't afford it. I agree with you. I don't trust Ohtani, but they're going to do everything they can in their power to try to make this thing go to bed.
Yeah. And they're in such a conundrum now, baseball, because sports betting is getting people into games, like people watching hockey games that weren't hockey fans because they've been betting hockey. Speaking of hockey, going to the game tonight. That's why I'm wearing this jersey. Big one, Bruins and Panthers.
I love it.
But now they're in this conundrum where sports betting and embracing it would probably really help the game and help people care on a, like you said, an afternoon in the middle of the summer to care about a baseball game. But now the MLB is going to have to be in this position of saying, no, sports betting is bad. We don't like sports betting, but we kind of need to embrace it to get people to watch the game. So it's a very tricky situation.
Put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
Put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. That's the move that they should do. He didn't need a fall guy. He took the heat. He admitted it. He said what he did. Ohtani's going ahead and falling on his translator, and I don't think it's very fair. But yeah, no, crazy story. Another crazy betting story. Bruno Mars, who's essentially an indentured servant now to MGM.
Space Jam 2.0.
Yeah, exactly.
Space Jam
Similar, 3. If you haven't seen the first Space Jam, the threat to Michael Jordan was that he was going to have to be like chained up playing basketball. More on mountain for the rest of his days. That looks like what it's happened to Bruno Mars, who owes $50 million to MGM Casino, they basically said, you're going to have a residency. We're going to pay you a couple $1 million from the shows, but you're going to have to essentially work to pay off your debts. He's an indentured servant. Yeah, to get $50 million in the hole. That's pretty crazy.
I mean, shame on MGM for even allowing him to get $50 million in the hole.
Well, maybe they got the best benefit from the bargain. Bruno Mars is a top tier talent. He's in Vegas doing shows, bringing people in. It's an interesting story, not sports related, but sports betting related.
Yeah, I mean, Bruno Mars definitely he caught a grenade for them, like he just says in his song.
Wow,
he caught a grenade for MGM, and MGM is cashing in, and there's going to be a lot of Bruno Mars. So if you are a Bruno Mars fan and you want to see him live in concert, I'm sure he'll be live in MGM for a very, very long time. Yeah, him and Celine Dion.
He's not going away anywhere. Well, maybe she has maybe Celine Dion also, we didn't know, she might be a Bagels and Locks listener.
She could be.
Yeah, she could be.
And Wayne Newton, he maybe,
You never know.
You never know. But that on that note, let's wrap it up here. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. It would mean a lot. Dan, any farewell words?
I'm looking forward to seeing the Sweet 16. Another good week and weekend of betting. Hopefully everybody wins. Good luck on your parlays. Good luck on your straight bets. And we'll see you soon.
Adios.
Bye.